Hi there. So this time, I'm excited. I'm making a cookie. And back when I lived in the East Coast, it was easy to find. Some people call it Italian wedding cookies. Other people call them Tri-Colore cookies. That was easy. But they're a cookie that you can find in almost every Italian bakery ever known to humankind. And I don't get that anymore. I live in California. And so, because my daughter loves them so much, I said, the heck with this, I can probably make them myself. So that's what I chose to do. And I have some very sweet friends coming for dinner tonight. I may make a video of what dinner is going to be, too. I haven't decided. But I'm going to make Italian wedding cookies, Tri-Colore cookies. They're the cookies you've seen in an Italian bakery that have a red, a green, and cake, if you will, or white. Red, white, and green. The Italian colors. Shh, don't tell anybody. And so that's what this is going to be. I'm excited to do it. I hope you enjoy. And they're not terribly hard. They just take some time. As you can see, I have 3 cake pans. They're the same size. And in this pan, in this bowl, is butter, almond paste. I'm going to be adding almond extract, and I'm going to be adding sugar. And then I'm going to mix all of that together. What ends up happening is you make the batter, and then you split it in 3 sections, and you add the food coloring to the 2 other sections. So let's get started. So what I have so far is a 7-ounce package of almond paste. It's in a tube. You use the entire package. 3/4, so 1 stick and a half. A stick and a half of butter. The recipe said you can use margarine. I never use margarine. I just am a butter person. 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and then 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. And I'm going to mix all of that together at this point. So one of the things you do kind of in the beginning, and I know I say so a lot at the beginning of sentences, but I'm not going to stop. So I have 3 8x8 baking pans. And I cut 3 pieces of 8x8 wax paper. I grease the I grease the bottom of the pan, put the wax paper down, grease the wax paper, and then add a coat of flour, a light coat of flour on top of the wax paper for each pan. You'll understand more why it's done and what matters and why it matters so much when we get to that section of making this. So yes, is this a time-consuming recipe? Yeah, but it's wonderful. When you combine the almond and the apricot, oh my goodness. So that's what I'm doing now. At this point, I've added flour to the greased bottom of the pan with the wax paper and the greased wax paper on top. And now I'm just shaking the flour all around. You can see what I'm doing here to get the flour to coat the bottom of the pan. And there's excess. The excess will be discarded. Now we're going to be kneading the butter, the sugar, and the almond paste. You can see the almond paste is a tube. Logically, one should break it up before. And also, when you finish going through this, please know you're still going to have lumps in the almond paste, and that's actually okay. And my dogs are hoping something's going to hit the floor. You could use a stand mixer. I personally just enjoy the process of holding a mixer. I don't know why, but it's just my nature. So we are pretty much blended here. And as I said, there may be lumps. Don't worry about the lumps. Actually, it's okay. Obviously, you've got to clean up the sides of the bowl to make sure everything is getting in there. And my dog's nose is not allowed to touch anything. And there you are. So now I'm going to beat in 1 egg at a time. There's a total of 3 eggs. They're large eggs. Please remember, eggs are liquid. So if you have an extra large egg, it's going to be too much. And a medium egg is not going to be enough. If you want to Google it, you can actually see how you figure out how much liquid there is in an egg, but just be cautious when you're baking that you get the right size eggs or it's going to do damage to what you're cooking. It won't work. Egg number 1. The 3 eggs have been added. Everything has been beaten together. There are still bits of almond paste mixed lumps kind of thing, but I kind of like that part. What I'm now going to add is a cup of flour that has been sifted so that, I'm sure you all know that if you cook, sifting kind of breaks it apart so it's not as dense and lightens it a bit, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So that's going to be added here very slowly. And making sure that it's combined. Remember, this will be somewhat thick, so be prepared for that part. It will be somewhat thick. So I'm now going to add the flour. I'm going to add it in segments, mixing in between. That's one of the most important things about baking, is you don't just dump everything in and then hope it turns out okay. You do it slowly so that it's well blended. So all of the flour has been added and the salt has been added and it's well blended. And now we're ready to do the next piece. What's going to happen next is breaking this into 3 bits, 3 sections, and adding food coloring to 2. So you need 3 bowls. Obviously keep one, this one, and 2 more, and I'll show you what happens next. What's next is I'm going to take this cup, and there are going to be 3, actually 2 separated, rounded cups of the batter, 1 in each bowl, and a rounded cup will stay in this bowl. I hate when stuff escapes. Red food coloring. 15 drops. Let's start here. Green food coloring. 15 drops. Obviously, the goal here is to blend the food coloring fully, completely into the batter. As you can see, it's working. Second spoon. And you see, get down in the bowl. See? You need to make sure you get all of that. I now have red, green, and the regular cake batter ready to go. We're now going to put the batter into the 3 cake baking dish, whatever they are. You notice I'm using, this is actually the best kind of spatula to use to frost a cake or ice a cake, depending on where you're from. I find it easier to spread here with this, so that's why I'm using this guy, because it just, the way it's bent. Found it, Hobby Lobby, love it. My little commercial for Hobby Lobby. I'm also so fussy about getting every little bit of everything I can get. So, just gonna spread this around nice and even. Make sure you get to the corners. Make sure you hit all the corners. See the lumps in there? That's almond paste, which is actually pretty amazing. Not a horrible thing to have bits of in any cake in my mind. So we're spreading, obviously we're spreading it evenly. And we're going to do the same thing with the red and the green cake batter. Once you have this all done, we're going to put it into a 350-degree oven. And by the way, guys, I know if you're a baker, you know this. If you're a cook, you know this. Remember that even though it says that the oven is ready, I don't really believe it's completely ready until it's been ready for a little bit longer. So if you get the beep, 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 your oven is 350, I like to give it a little bit more time. I think preheating an oven with extra time is actually a very wise thing to do. So there is my basic, which will be the layer that becomes the white layer. I'm now going to do the same thing with the green and the red, and I'll come back to you. So what happens after you have sieved the apricot jam, is within each layer. So remember, you have a bottom layer, middle layer, top layer, you have red, white, and green. Between each layer, there will be a layer of apricot jam before you add the next layer of the cake. So you have thinned out, if you will, the apricot jam. I like heating it because it just makes more sense to me. I thin that out, and then I put down the first layer. I add apricot jam as a layer, put the cake on top, another layer of apricot jam, and the last layer of cake on top. And then when you've done that, that's after you've done that, I should say, you then add the layer of the chocolate. And I've seen pictures of people making the chocolate all fancy. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make it chocolate on top. And I've also seen folks that don't, and you'll see this at the end. When I'm cutting away the edges of this cake, there's no way in heck I'm going to throw away those edges. I actually will admit to you, I ate a bit of it myself. But when I had these sweet friends come over, it was important for me to give them the edges, because you don't cut stuff off of a wonderful cake and throw it away. You just eat it. So do that. Remember, apricot jam between each layer. So this piece is one of the most challenging, if you will. Actually, that's not fair. Annoying. I have apricot jam here, and I was just going to take a picture and add it, but you need to know what I'm doing. So the apricot jam, when you buy relatively good apricot jam, is going to have apricot bits in it, and the goal is to not have any apricot bits in the jam. So what I'm doing is straining the apricot jam that I have warmed up to get rid of all the bits. And then that's going to become part of the layers of the cookie. That's why this cookie is so amazing. So just understand you're going to need a good strainer. It doesn't have to be big. I warm up the apricot jam in advance because it's easier. And then I just push it through the strainer and remove all the parts that are not thick. And the thick things go into the sink to be removed. And that's what you've got. Yeah, it's annoying, but it's okay. Okay, we're at the next stage. So the cakes have been completed, and the next step is to run a knife around the edge of the cake, and I'm going to show you that. I'm very worried because I forgot to mention something. Remember, there's wax paper. You can take that little bit right there. There's wax paper on the bottom of the pan. And you need to make sure you remove that when you turn the pan over with the cake in it, period. So that was just me doing a dictation, whatever. Here's my concern. Remember, you have wax paper on the bottom of the baking pan. When you turn it over, just make sure you remove the wax paper before you add the apricot jam. And I always laugh because I remember years ago, gosh, I was living in Texas, and a young girl asked me why didn't her turkey turn out well, and where were her giblets, and she'd never removed them from the turkey before she baked. So we don't want you to do that. Okay, next. The green cake has been turned over. It happened easily. And now I am removing the wax paper. And I personally don't have a problem with being a little bit brown. My challenge was making sure it was cooked through. So all the wax paper gets removed. And then we're gonna add apricot jam. We have the next layer of cake that has been put, again, upside down on top of the green layer. And once again, we're removing the wax paper. And once again, I have no problem with it being a little brown. Some people may. The challenge is going to be your oven, which my oven did not cooperate with today. So I'm not going to change anything, but you do push down on the cake to make sure it is completely set on top of the prior layer. I have put the third layer on top and remove the wax paper. Oops, forgot some. Can't have that happen because we don't want to eat wax paper, although it won't kill you. Doesn't taste good. So now the next piece that's going to happen is that I'm going to heat the chocolate, which is being mixed with Crisco. Now, the recipe I'm using calls for butter flavored Crisco. I don't use Crisco a ton, but I do have some things that I enjoy baking. It's all about baking, that use butter flavored Crisco. So I have it. The problem is it comes in large packaging, so sometimes I don't use it up before I can't use it anymore. So what will happen is I'm going to add the chocolate mixed with Crisco that has been melted, blended in the pan to the top. Once I've done that, and yes, you'll get some pictures. Once I've done that, then you're going to have something you're going to put in the fridge because it's got to set for a while, at least an hour. So the chocolate gets firm in an hour. As you can tell, there is my messy pan. And oh, by the way, let's talk about the mess of the sink. Yeah, there's a lot in here, all going into the dishwasher momentarily. What I have here is 3 ounces of baking chocolate. I already included a picture, along with a teaspoon of butter flavored Crisco, period. Sorry, I did that again. I'm not dictating. Butter flavored Crisco. Understand there are people who don't want to have anything to do with Crisco. It's fat and it's not low cal, but this whole cookie isn't low cal. So if you love the cookie, just eat it. Just saying. I finished, and the next step is it gets to be refrigerated for at least an hour because the chocolate has to solidify. And then ultimately you're going to cut it into bits, not small bits, just bits. And I'll take a picture of that and add that to the video overall. Don't be intimidated by this. Yes, it's challenging, and yes, it takes time. But if you're from New Jersey or New York or Boston or any of those places where you could get those great Italian cookies and you can't get them wherever you may be right now, you can make them yourself. So don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. Just do it and it'll be great. And I can share with you, I cannot wait to share this with my young couple friends who are coming for dinner tonight, making pasta carbonara, which is a whole separate video. And enjoy. Just don't be afraid. Don't be intimidated. Just do it. Just do it. Kind of like the Nike commercial. Sorry, Nike.